Hello, good afternoon, and welcome everybody to day number 4 of webinar week number 3. A little bit of a different lineup today. We've got Michael Supp, who is another of the co-founders of Beyond Pulse, in the hot seat. He's stepping in for Mr. Mark Wilson today. So for some of you, Supp will be a new face, but as you get more and more familiar with us as an organization, he'll be somebody that you hear from and see in a lot of the little videos. So Suppy joins us, and Michael, delighted to have you. And then we've got a father and son tag team duo, Keith and David Mayer, who are joining us. We've got Keith is over in England, so again, hopefully the streaming will work just fine. David's out west here in the US, so we should be all good here. These guys are going to dive into some of the lessons from their wonderful book and an Amazon #1 bestseller, Gold Dust, and really discuss with us how we can become more effective coaches. So gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for sharing your evenings or afternoons with us. For the benefit of everybody on the line, again, if there's questions that pop up throughout this that you would like to ask, please use the chat function. But for now, if you can remain in mute with your webcams off, just so we can keep the line as clear as possible, that would be great. So Keith, David, for the purpose of people who are less familiar with you guys, if you could please just give us a little background and an intro to you guys, and then obviously as we build through this, we'll get into the book. So we'll go. Keith, you start us off, mate.
Okay, I have been coaching. Well, I don't know. I've been coaching for 37 years. I've had coaching qualification for 37 years, and I'm an ex-player. I played at a professional club over in England. Didn't have a long career in the game because I got injured, and then I got into coaching, which has transformed my life. It's helped me to travel and coach on 6 continents, which has been a wonderful experience for me. And most recently, I went into a little bit of a tag team with my son to write a co-author a book, which, as you rightly say, Tom, has been a #1 bestseller over in the UK at the moment. And so it's been a wonderful journey. My co-author, I dare say, and I'm not being humble about it, without him, this journey would not have been where it is at the moment. So I feel extremely privileged and proud to be having David alongside me, working and going on this wonderful journey that we're on.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Keith. Dave, you want to follow up, mate?
Yeah, it's thanks for having us on, by the way. And our paths, both my dad and my path have been very similar. Played as well, played in the UK, at Wigan Athletic, played in Spain, moved over to the US, and again, my career, I was finished at 25. My body couldn't take it, a lot of injuries. And at that point, what do you do next? And I ended up following again the same path as my dad, and went into coaching. So for the past, I was coaching while I was playing, but I'd say from a full time pretty much now for 3 to 4 years, but I've been coaching really since I was young. I was quite fortunate growing up and in my journey that whenever my dad was delivering and coaching at the clubs he was working at, I would generally go with him. So very fortunate to see a lot of that. Very fortunate to see some really, really good coaches, really from as young as I can remember. So that's my journey. Right now I'm based in Salt Lake City, Utah, and as my dad mentioned, we started writing the book. The idea came about in May of 2019, and few ideas came together. By July we started writing, and November 27th, 4 months after, we published the book. And to be honest, it's been crazy since then. There's obviously been a lot of good things that have come from the book, and a lot of great messages that have come back from people that have read it. So yeah, that's where I'm I'm at right now, and hopefully there'll be more to come.
Perfect. Thank you, mate. Obviously, what we're going to talk about, and the book is based. You guys are leveraging it from a coach education perspective and trying to inform and inspire people to to learn lessons of how they can become more effective coaches. So my first question to you guys, as we have throughout all of this series, is to explore the biggest influences on your careers, or the people that you've most admired within that industry. So if you could, we'll go for a single five-a-side team. So Keith, you can have 3 picks, and David, you will have 2. But if you could give us the names of the collective five-a-side team of the person, the role within which you got to know them, and the characteristic that made them so influential to you, or in your opinion made them separate themselves from the rest. So Keith, if you'd like to take number 1 away.
So we've got 5 total, Tom, is that correct, or 5 each?
5 total. We'll go 3 with you and 2 with Dave.
Okay, so I think the first influence in my career was when I was playing, actually, as a teacher called Mr. Miller. I think everybody on the call will have somebody who's created a memory for them, a footballing memory. Mr. Miller was my primary school teacher and used to wear the old football boots, hobnail boots. He had his socks in his pants. When we played home games, he refereed the games. We never lost a game. We'd keep playing. We might be losing, but we'd never lost a game. So Mr. Miller, bushy beard, very stern, very disciplined, and he set some standards for me. He didn't know back then that I'd be talking about him now. But so Mr. Miller is my first pick. The second one is a guy called Alec Gibson, and Alec Gibson was our northwest. I live in the northwest of England, and Alec was our northwest regional development coach, and he actually helped build some frameworks around the methodology and the process of how to deliver sessions. I think what he helped me to do is he actually embedded and imprinted technical detail that has been it's been kept, and I continue to use that. So Alec Gibson would be my number 2. I'm going to ask and have a fourth. I have got another person actually, but can I have another one, or can we have an extra one, or not?
Son's going to give up a pick, then you can have another one.
All right, well, I'll have 4. David can have 1. The next one's a guy called Dick Baird, and so Dick Baird, our book is dedicated to Dick Baird, and for anyone again who's been around the game will have heard of Dick Baird. He's travelled all around the world. His standards, his morals, everything that he stood for, his demeanour, again his technical detail. But I was very fortunate to spend 35 years in and around spending time with this gentleman, and he was just so humble, but yet such a maverick and a pathfinder of his kind. I've never come across anybody like it. Never heard anybody speak badly about him, and I never heard him speak badly about man or woman. And then I'm going to say my fourth pick would be, and it's the people that I've surrounded myself with and actually been in my life. There's many of them, and I've taken many little bits of piece I didn't know at the time. But it's only when I go away and reflect on, a little saying or a practice design or the way that they deal with and treat the people or the players. So my fourth one would be, it encompasses so many of the males and females that I've been very fortunate to spend and watch and observe and pick and ask questions. Michael being one of them. So I'm going to say my fourth one is an accumulation of all of the coaches that I've worked with that actually helped me to become who I am. And of course, I've got my own values and beliefs, so sticking to those in addition to, the little technical bit, the little saying, the little way that somebody communicates something nicely to a player or deals with it or handles the situation. So my fourth one is everybody that I've been fortunate to work with. And then I'll leave if I can have a fifth one, but I'm not going to have that. I'll leave that up to David.
I don't know who your fifth would be if you've used everybody, Keith. I don't know who you left over. That's brilliant. Thank you, David. Go ahead, mate. Finish us off.
Tom, technically, if he's used everybody, that is just one member. So I should have four now, shouldn't I?
Maybe, yeah. To be fair, mate.
Right. So I've got one. Can I have a sub?
Go on, have a sub, mate. Go on.
Okay. The first one, I think for those that know me, I think this is quite an obvious one. It would be my dad. He would be the driving force in midfield, and I think I've touched on it that really from when I can remember, both as a player and then on my journey as a person, but also as a coach now. I've spent 8.5 years in the US, and we speak every day, whether it's a 5-minute phone call. There's been quite a few 2-hour phone calls where we have to just cut it off. So in terms of influence, that's the biggest one, and that's really why I am who I am today and why I hold the beliefs I hold. Obviously, I'm my own person, but a lot of those things have been shaped around the conversations that we have on a daily basis. So that's can I be the captain? Is that okay?
That's fine, mate.
Perfect. And then the sub, he's not a footballing person, actually. He's a teacher that actually is featured in the book. He was my teacher at high school, and he was a world champion Thai boxer while teaching. I think he might have two-time world champion boxer, but great guy. And he left the teaching realm from a schooling perspective and opened up his own gym. And he's had over 50 champions since he opened it a few years ago, several world champions. And from the perspective of teaching, which for me, I think as a coach, I think you're only really that effective when you're actually teaching people. And he's one of the best teachers I've ever seen. His name's Kevin Harper. Like I said, he features in the book. He's a martial arts guy, but when you see how he interacts with people, he can work with a 3 and a 4-year-old, and they have the best. You'll see it on Facebook, on videos. They're having the best experience they've ever had. And then he's working with world champion athletes, pushing them to be even better every day. So he's going to be, because I've only got one. I only had one starting player. He's going to have to take it. He's going to have to be a sub, unfortunately.
I'm sure his place is well deserved, though, mate, and we'll get him ample minutes. I'm sure we can squeeze him in. Guys, thank you ever so much for that. And Keith, I'm sure it doesn't surprise you to hear that Dick has been included in a number of these selections based on his influence to so many people over the years. And obviously, as you brilliantly alluded to, the book is acknowledged and dedicated to the work that he's done. So it's a mainstay in many. We spoke offline about not wanting to give so many tips and tricks of your trade away, and obviously encourage people to go and read Gold Dust if they haven't. But we are going to obviously frame the conversation around just some of the kind of key conversation points and ideas that you guys bring up there. So if we could, we've spoken an awful lot, and I referenced this prior to coming on about the importance of connection and how we create cultures and environments that children feel, adults feel comfortable learning in, developing in. Obviously, one of your titles is how you can optimize the environment that you coach in. So can you give us a little bit of insight into what that means and some practical ideas for the coaches on the line? Whoever wants to take it away.
I guess I'm up. Yeah, so like we mentioned, with the book, I know my dad actually, he wanted to write a book, and he'd had this in his head for a while. But it was in May that we looked at, we want to write a book around the importance of connection and the importance of connection, especially within sports. So obviously the journey went on, like we've mentioned, the time it took to write the book, to get it all together. But it is based around the importance of connection. And we looked at ways that can be done. We talked to a lot of people that are very successful in their game, whether it's in soccer, whether it's in rugby, whatever sports it is, and there were similarities that came through. And I think the main one is it's not about the athlete as much as it is about the person. And if you don't take time to understand the athlete or to understand the person and get to know that person, can you really influence them with integrity and influence them positively on their journey? I think it can be difficult, because if you don't know them, can you take them to where they want to go? And I know one of the early chapters, which is based around connection and how do you build that initial connection with people. And we touch on pacing, where you enter another person's world on their terms, and you're aiming to match whether the language they use and the beliefs they have and the values they hold, in order to gain a rapport and a connection with them. And I think only once you're really able to pace a person and build that connection, are you able to effectively lead them. Because if you don't have that connection with someone, really all you have is your opinion. And until you build it, I think it's quite difficult to positively influence.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And Keith, I don't know if you can extend that a little bit. It's a great phrase there that David used in terms of entering on another person's world on their terms. What might a practical example of that be? Whether it be language use, whether it be understanding what they're trying to get out of the experience, what their day's been like prior to coming. Can you just give a couple of practical examples of how a coach might do that?
Sure. From where I work at one of the largest academies in the country. Certainly it is one of the largest football academies in the country, in the Premier League. And when players actually come into our facility, they've had a busy day. They've been in work, they've been in school, and although it's a footballing factory, what we've got to do is got to get to the level where we're getting to understand them a little bit more. So the footballing is obviously that's the primary, but how do we get so that we're digging in and helping them to become more relaxed or more comfortable whilst they're with us? And so when they come in to the building, or when they come in and around, one of the first things that we want to do is engage them and find out what the day has been like, and actually listen, but listen with intent. Because I think what coaches tend to do, they'll ask questions and then they're moving on, and they're not actually actively listening. They're just interacting. It doesn't mean anything. So, for example, would be, we've got a little lad that comes in, and I genuinely want to know what he's been doing. And what have you been doing during the day? And invariably you're going to get, we've been playing, we've been doing English or maths, or we've been doing a little bit of science. Well, I want to know what they've been doing. I want to find out what they've been doing specifically, and I want to find a subject that they do like doing, and that tends to be obviously PE. And so, but we do have a lad who likes to write. He loves reading. David Walliams, he's bought every single one of his books, and I want to know about them. I don't even know who he is, but I want to know what he does. So I'll ask questions, and I want to know about it. I want to know about Davy Williams. I want to know about King Edward V, or what President Eisenhower did. I want to know. I want the information so it comes back. So I'm actually going in and listening to find out what's currently taking and going on, and actively getting their attention. And then from that, who knows where it goes? We're just helping them to just feel at home. It is their house when they come into our facility. And when they come into the facility, we're going to make sure that they are ready to go and feel at ease and feel calm and ready, and ready to pounce and to be running away, not to be running out and scraping the floor when they're on the way out. They don't want to leave. So it's listening to the language they use, Tom, listening specifically, and then effectively what we're doing is just repeating what they ask or what they say. So you've had a nice day. Oh, you've had a nice day. Good. What have you been doing today? We've been doing math. Okay, you've been math. What have you been doing there? And so when it's like mirroring their language. We're actually mirroring or mimicking it. We've got to be careful about it. So when we like people, we tend to be like them. When we like people, we tend to be like them. And all we're doing is I'm actually just manipulating my character, my state, so that I'm using language, I'm using the volume, I'm using tonality and the timbre of a voice that's similar to theirs. And so from that, it's a dance. That's all it is. And then off and away we go. The interactions might take a minute, but that minute is well worth taking. When we're walking to and from practice, I'll use that time to walk and talk with players that might have a brother or sister. They might like dance, they might like singing, they might play the piano. I'm just getting to know what they do outside of the game, because in the game, when they're with us, that's it. They're playing football or soccer. When they're actually not playing the game, I want to know what they do. So then we've got some interaction. The next time I meet with them, it's a genuine interest, and then listening to them, because you're not going to have long conversations with young boys, young girls, 10, 12, 14-year-olds. They don't want to. So that's fine. But what I do want to do is, that's very massively important that we take that very short period of their time, our time, wisely. And we're just logging information and storing it and regurgitating it at the appropriate moment for them.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to that, a way that I look at it, and that we did mention it in the book, that everyone will have had this experience where you go to somebody's house and they don't make you feel at home, they don't make you feel welcome. And for us, that field, that's our house, and the kids are coming into our house. And what can we do to make that child, make that player, make that person feel at home? So, like I said, a lot of people will have had this experience where they go to somebody's house and the person that's hosting can't do enough for them, and they can't do enough to find out about what's been going on, and just to make them feel welcome. And the feeling that gives the person that's visiting is amazing. I'm sure there's been people on the opposite end of the spectrum where they've been somewhere and it's not been a good experience. So can we make that house, that field, that classroom, the office space, whatever it is that you're doing with your players and with your athletes, can you make them feel welcome and feel at home when they're coming in?
Yeah, it's such wonderful insight, and I think the way that you've both explained that, it demonstrates, again, as you both said, the importance of the person before the player. David, it's kind of one of the first things that you referenced. The thing that springs to mind, Keith, with how you're talking is, again, when we're working with any athlete, I guess, but certainly those in like the formative or foundation years, the phrase, they don't know what you care until they know, they don't know what care what you know until they know that you care, right? And taking that genuine and sincere, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, one question, just to to build a relationship with them that can be the bedrock of getting to know them truly as people. Keith, you mentioned that you want them to feel like you've got to scrape them off the floor when they leave, right? Which I think is a really nice analogy for delivering the type of session or practice where they feel really engaged and they're loving what they do. I want to move with that in mind into talking to you about the ideas that you propose for how you can make your athletes feel better about what it is that they do. Is that feedback? Is that delve into some practical examples of how you guys have suggested that coaches can do that, and how it might lead to you achieving that feeling of the kicking and the screaming, wanting to leave the football field or the soccer field. Yeah, Keith, go ahead, mate.
Yeah, well, during practice, these are organic in nature, and we make the players feel $1 million. Coaches tend to be ego anima. There's lots of ego anima. It's all about them instead of all about the player. And if you change the syntax, the actual value added that the coach will get from it will be far greater than looking after them, feeling as they are the world. The coach is the world, not the players. Now, during practice, then you're encouraging what takes place ahead of you, what's actually happening in front of us. So I know we depending on the levels that we're at, we're in development here. We're going to go performance happy or results happy. I'm a performance happy coach. I'm interested in the performance longer term. Long-term development is the area that I work in. The results are important. Results are massively important. But I'm not. Where I work at Liverpool Football Academy, I'm not going to get sacked if we get beat. We will win more than we lose. But I'm more interested in how we perform as individuals. And during practices, I'm actually looking out for specifically the one thing that you might have as a development, it might be turning, and if you do that turn or you're working on the turn, so we've got a thread from when we start, from the practice, from the technical skills or the skill sets, and then we move into more game related practice where we've got direction taking place, and then we finish off with a game. There's a common thread throughout. So the thread of turning might be, Tom, might be your development plan, or something that has been agreed where you feel you need and we feel you need to improve. And every time that you do that, or every time that you actually get yourself into a position where you can actually turn more effectively and efficiently, then that will be recognized. It might only be a little soft, subtle word in your ear, or it might be a thumbs up and you'll know what it is, or you might get a eureka, oh, that is brilliant, Tom. I saw what you did, and you haven't got a clue. But what you're actually doing is we're making you feel through voice and tonality and recognition of what you need is being seen. And now, if I look at Michael, and Michael might be his first touch. David's might be, it actually might be defending. And in one actual practice, all three of you might be getting subtle messages, little challenges that are being mentioned to you quietly. But when it's seen and it's recognized, it's acknowledged. And then there'll be a reinforcement of it. At the end, a conversation might take place. What about that goal that you scored? What about that goal? What I wonder whether you can do it again when you come back on Wednesday. I'm challenging you for that. Do you think you can? Of course you. Great, that's brilliant. All right, we're up for the challenge. And so what you're doing, we're actually influencing, Tom, through language. And language is a communication, a big broad field, isn't it? But language through phonetics and the volume and the enthusiasm that we use our words will actually engage the individual. if we are lethargic and we want energy from the group, but yet we are dour, boring, and everybody's falling asleep, and then you wonder why the players are following suit, you only need to look at the Indian chief. What we've got to do is look yourself in the mirror and start to engage them with a little bit more pizzazz and a bit more energy, so that the energy comes from inside of you. It'll then transmit and hit the players. We then need to then control it, but we're recognizing the little things that you need, Michael needs, David needs, Freddie needs, Sarah needs. And what we're doing is we're not generically coaching. We coach. Coaching is transporting someone or some people that are a valuable, they're an asset. I think we talk in generic terms. It's not specific enough. It's a team sport, but yet we've got to get individuals to work so that they can become more proficient at doing what they do, so that they can enjoy their experience more. And if they enjoy it, they'll stay in the game longer. When they stay in the game longer, they might be actually remembering us, like I do with my Mr. Miller, who was my first teacher, who took me in football. He created a memory for me. He'll not know that I've been talking about him now. But Mr. Miller and everybody else, we create a football memory when we're coaching, or soccer memory. We're coaching memories. We're actually creating memories in them. So when we engage players and we coach them, can we actually engage and ensure that we take them on a wonderful journey that they can have fun, and who knows what can go on from there. Not all are going to be professional footballers, but while they're with us, can we look after them with care? That's important.
It's a great message, Keith. And I'm going to draw some commonalities to some of the conversations that we've been fortunate to have over the last few weeks. And one of my biggest mentors here in the US and a good friend of Dick was the late great Tony DeCicco. And Tony's message of catch them being good is exactly kind of what you're referencing, in terms of very often coaches feel like we have to intervene or interject in a session for a correction, and not often enough are we doing it just simply to, acknowledge positive performance and the benefit that can have. But I also want to speak to the people listening and just identify that we've spoken about specificity in actions and behaviors and in planning, and what Keith is referencing in terms of it's a skill to use your voice and the intonation that you use to capture and engage people. It's not something that you're doing by chance. I'm sure, Keith, when it needs to get a little bit lower and quieter for a subtle, encouraging word, and when it needs to be more vibrant and booming to acknowledge something that's happening. Maybe you're coaching over the top in a moment, so I think that skill set becomes really, really important for coaches to be consciously and deliberately working on improving, because as you've clearly referenced, that the power of it is a significant one. Suppy, don't feel like you can't jump in here. I don't want to just sit
I'm just enjoying listening. I'm enjoying the what Keith and David are taking us through. One thing I'd love to just say, really, it's not even a question, is Keith, from the time I was able to learn from you, and when you started getting me thinking about providing individual comments and feedback, and how do you do that within the session. One thing that struck me from the very beginning is how when you go out of your way to do that as a coach, the power it has, and in the way that it lifts that player is remarkable. It really is. The player, how they respond to individual feedback versus generic as a group, it's night and day. And it became such a great way to connect with players over something that they did. But I'll never forget that when I started to consciously try and do that more as a coach, just seeing the response, he or she really paid attention to what I just said. All I did was walk over to them, pull them to the side and say, hey, I really liked what you did there. And it's just me and them. but that, the cheeky smile comes in and they're really proud and then they go off again. It's so powerful, doing that.
Yeah, it's great message, Suppy. Dave, I'm going to come back to you, David. We're going to move on now to recommendations for optimizing athletes' learning. So you speak about ideas behind how you can do that in practice, at the field, maybe sometimes away from the field with the IDPs, perhaps that your dad have referenced. So can you speak a little bit about some of the best practice ideas or the recommendations that you have for coaches to be able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the main thing is, and I know it's been touched on, I know my dad mentioned it, that we are dealing with individuals here. It's a team sport, but it is, without the individuals, there is no team. And it only takes 3 to 4 of those kids within that group to not be enjoying their experience for that team to fall apart really quickly. And there was a really good quote that Steve Highway said, the Liverpool legend, obviously as a player and a coach, and he referred to music, and he said, when you look at music, you could have 20 people all playing the guitar. They've all got the same teacher, but they all end up being different types of guitar players. And the reason that they're not going to sound the same is because they bring their own personality and they bring their own character. And we need to train and teach players within soccer, people within soccer, to be the same. It's not that everybody has to fit in. It's not a one size fits all situation, and players should bring their own personality to the table. I think with that, you'll also have kids that ask a lot of questions. You'll have the kids that are curious and they ask questions, and I've seen it where they get shot down with asking questions. Stop asking questions, you're interfering too much, and just listen and carry on doing what you're doing. But really, that I think it's a good trade to have, because for me, for some kids, there's some that'll ask a lot of questions. It can show that they actually want to learn. It can show that they don't understand, but it can also show that they want to learn and they're not afraid to ask questions to be able to learn. And I think if you don't know the answer for something, I love learning. I'm huge on it, whether it's within soccer, whether it's within all kinds of different fields. I love learning, and if I don't know the answer to something that I'm interested in, I'll research it, or I'll ask somebody that maybe does know the answer. So if I then go out on the field and disable the kids from doing that, from allowing them to learn and allowing them to experiment, then I think I would be doing a disservice. But my dad touched on a lot of that from a perspective of within practice, even though it's a group, it's individuals. There's actually a young boy that I know, and I've actually spent, before we obviously became on lockdown and was not allowed to practice. I got told that he wasn't enjoying his experience in a specific group by his dad, and it's not something you really want to hear. So I went above and beyond to find out what the reasons were, and the boy, he felt excluded from the group, but he wasn't getting that, let's say, that loving that he wanted. It was more about what he wasn't doing rather than what he was. I think it can be really easy, and that there'll be people that are too quick to say what you can't do rather than what you can. And people, for the most part, generally tend to become more of what they're told they are. So if you're really bad at passing and I don't tell you how you can get better and how you can improve, then the chances of you just staying really bad at passing will continue. And this young boy, I think he was going through a little bit of that. He wasn't enjoying coming to practice. He didn't want to be at practice. And at that point, I stepped in, spoke to his dad, and worked with the boy for a few weeks, and I made point that whenever he was doing something, I'd just shower him with praise of something that he'd done well, and a lot of it was the hard work that he was doing. And we touched on, we talk about enthusiasm and energy, but for me, the coaches control the energy, they control the enthusiasm, because if I walk on and I look and, oh, well done, and I'm very flat and boring with it, it doesn't really travel as far as, what a great job, fantastic, well done. I love the way you've just worked hard there. Johnny, what a fantastic pass. You worked hard to get in that position. And I spent a lot of time with this kid over the couple of week period. And his dad called me up 2 weeks ago, right as we stopped practicing. He said, my son's really upset that we're not practicing anymore. He was loving it. He can't wait for us to open back up. Hopefully we're back up soon. And I actually called the boy last night and said, I don't know, we'll use a different, Johnny, how are you? He said, I'm amazing. Amazing. I'm going out every day practicing soccer and I love it. And for me, that I look at that and it's simple, but I've done my job there, because that boy now is enjoying what it is he's doing. And I think as a coach, that's what our role is as a teacher, is to make people enjoy their experiences. There are obviously a lot of different things we can go into, but for me, that's the big thing.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's a great anecdote, and again, I think it relates so wonderfully to what you've touched upon earlier in the conversation in terms of the environment that you guys are looking to create, right? You've said that you've got to have you're not going to allow kids to be curious and ask questions if you're going to shut it down. So you're very intentional about providing an environment where A, they feel safe and secure enough to do it. B, they're probably encouraged to do it, or C, you've spoken even just a little bit there, whether you knew you were or not, on the importance of specific process-oriented feedback, right? You're not referencing necessarily the single action and just the outcome. What have you done before that in order to allow you to achieve it? And I think all of those characteristics build into to the type of wonderful learning that is clear that would be witnessed with you guys as you work. So if we can just turn it now, obviously the process around, for me, the environment that you create, how you connect with them individually, how you allow them to learn. Obviously, Keith, you did touch upon the fact that there is an outcome aspect, a performance-based aspect at the end of this, which is the game or the individual journey that the players go on. So is there anything that you guys can add, and Keith, coming to you first, on optimizing performance levels when it does come to game day or match day?
Yeah, I think what precedes it, Tom, is to get the best from anyone in any walk of life. They require three things from us. I'm sure someone who are listening, they might have more, but the three primary things are, from an individual, for us to take them on a journey, and it is only a journey. We only play a small part in that child's life. There are many other coaches and many other people have played a part and will play a part. What we're going to do is make sure our part is one where they've got masses of learning and they've taken a lot. So the three things are the following. They want to know that they can learn from you. Once players know that they can learn, and they will learn and are learning, they will want to know more about how they can learn. We engage them. We're taking them somewhere. They've got to know that they can learn. Number two, they've got to know that they can trust us. That comes over a period of time. The third thing is they need to know and understand that you care for them. So they'll actually listen. They'll be listening to what we're saying to them, Tom, but they'll actually pick up their energy of the voice that's being transmitted. We're only transmitters. They're the recipients. And once they know they can learn, care, and they're with somebody that they can trust, it doesn't matter where you go. So in terms of the performance, what we're doing is we're aiming to build up little nuggets of information that can help them, whatever that might be, and being specific. I think we become very generic. I think there are lots of coaches out there that know how to coach. There are lots of coaches out there that don't know how to coach, by the way. There's not many good teachers out there, but the ones who know how to coach don't know what to coach. And the flip of that, lots of coaches know what to coach, but they can't coach how. They can't do the how bit. They don't teach it well enough. And the players will dissect that. They'll understand it very early. They'll pick their own. Once they know they're with somebody that cares, they can learn, and they can trust, and they actually know how to coach and they know what to coach, they will then, the players now I'm referring to, whether it's performance, whether they're going through a learning cycle, and of course, in the levels that I'm coaching, I'm in the youth development phase. So I'm coaching up to the under 12s at the club. When we go to play games, it's a different skill set required during the game as it is than that of practice. We're just transferring them over, and all we're doing is the only thing that changes is a kit that we're playing against, and the working environment, which might change. That's all. All we're going to do is put them in different situations, so that this organic learning that does take place. We're building up this portfolio of skills and of knowledge and experiences for them, so that they'll be able to reciprocate it again, and again. And so that the next game they play will be another experience for them. All we're going to do is, can we stick them in environments where it's frenetic? So we'll go across to Europe, where they've got all the shot. Well, not at the moment we don't, but when we do, when the floodgates open up, our players go out and they experience playing in front of lots of crowds, and it's noisy. Now they might not like that, and I think that's great. We've got to stick them where it's ugly, but they know that they're going to be cared for regardless. And that's a massive important for us to make sure we stick them in environments where they're going to learn, we're going to stretch them, and they're going to be in ugly zones. It's not going to be comfortable for them. I'm going to ask you, if I may, Michael, do you drive a car?
I do drive.
Mike. Yeah, do you have a car?
Not mine, but I drive it. Yep.
You drive a car. Do you need a car? Do you need a car if you've got a car?
In my current situation, I would say yes, I need it.
You need a car, sure. But do you need it? If you've got a car, you don't need another one unless you want to. I could have a nice one, a newer one, a faster one, a bigger one.
Sure.
Once we've got what we need, we then need to take them somewhere else. We don't need another car. So when we're doing practices and we're doing the same thing, beyond Pulse, it's like yourselves. If you've got wonderful technology that'll hopefully cascade across the planet. But once somebody's got it, do they need it again? There'll be advances of it, and that's where you need to find it. That's the niche. That's what we do as coaches. We're doing the same old. We're not stretching players. We're not taking them into ugly zones. We're going to find things that take them into these places where they're going to learn. That's what we do, Tom. I think that's what, as coaches, we need to be careful of how we stretch them. Because when we stretch them, we then need to make sure we look after them and we secure them again. That's when they know they can trust, they care. They know that we care for them, and they're learning. That's important as a coach.
Absolutely, and I think, and Dave, I'll let you elaborate momentarily. I think that the concept or the phrase that comes to mind here with me is safe uncertainty. So we're putting them in a situation where they're unfamiliar, they're uncomfortable, but they know that they're safe based on the relationship that's pre-established with you as their coach, or the environment that you've created for them. So
Sure.
Yeah, I really love that. Dave, you look like you wanted to add to something your dad was saying, if so.
Yeah. So I think as a player, I had experience as a player where I didn't feel good about it, didn't feel good about playing, and I don't want to subject players that I work with to that. You can learn from positive and negative experiences. And my negative experiences that I had play a big part in what I don't want to become, and also have directed me to what I do want to be in. My dad alluded on it with the trust. Can I trust you? And that's something that builds up over time, but it's something that can be lost in a moment. One moment that trust can be gone, and to maintain the trust, there has to be consistency within your messages, and that could be something. It could be something so simple as, guys, today I won't. Don't worry. I'll never say anything. But if you make a mistake, don't worry, because I won't break your mistakes. And then Johnny goes out on the field and Johnny gives the ball away. Johnny's 9 and he gives the ball away. Just because that's what happens. You watch Messi gives the ball away. And for me, he's the best player ever, and he gives the ball away. It happens. And Johnny gives the ball away, and Mr. Coach on the sideline pulls Johnny off and gives him a round of the kitchen. And within that one moment, the trust is gone. But that goes all the way up to the pro level. And again, there's one of the coaches in the book, a guy called Justin Holbrook, rugby coach, and he's the most successful coach over a 2.5-year span ever in the Super League in England. And he came over from Australia, and my dad met him first. He became good friends with Justin, and is still in good contact with him now, but we both built a good relationship with him, and we were very fortunate to spend time with him, but also in the environment that he was coaching in. So it's first team level. You lose, and you lose consistently, you're getting sacked. And for Justin, it's quite interesting. From the very moment that he walked in, we asked him, what was the first thing you did when you walked in? And he said, when I walked into the changing room that very first day, when this team was on a losing streak and they weren't performing well mid-season, he said, before I arrived, I made sure I knew who every player was, knew the name, I knew something about him, and when I met him, I addressed him by the name, and I made sure that I was learning things about them when they didn't expect it. And that was consistent over the 2.5 years. We were in meetings with the first team, both pre-match, post-match. There'd be video analysis stuff going on, and he was consistent. If they didn't play well, they would know about it, but it wasn't. Even in his interviews on TV, in the change rooms, he would never single a player out. He may pull them to the side and address it and look at how it can be better next time, but it was never singling out a player for making a mistake or for doing something that maybe it might cost the game. But it was never done on purpose. And I think, like I've mentioned, the trust is huge. It takes time to build it, and it can be gone in a moment. And whether you're in under 9s or you're working with a first team level, the importance of consistency in what you do as a coach is vital. And whether the kids are smart, they'll notice. You walk on the field with a sulk on your face, there's a lot more eyes looking at you than you are looking at them, and they'll see you. They'll know what's going on, and that goes all the way again through to the first team level. But yeah, I just wanted to add that in about the trust. I think it's a quite important point, and I took a lot from that.
I think it's so important, Dave, and it's a really nice way. I'm just conscious we're coming up to an hour of time. I think it's a really nice way to wrap up a conversation that obviously is steeped deeply in, as we said at the start, the importance of interpersonal relationships and relationship formations. I think it's the nice thing that we've seen as a common message throughout all of these conversations with coaches across so many wonderful different levels and with such extensive backgrounds like yourselves, but it keeps coming down to person before player, the importance of relationship formation, the importance of the environments that we intentionally try to create that will allow for us to achieve obviously all of the objectives that we have for the players in our care. So before we say our thank yous, and obviously on behalf of myself and Michael and the rest of Team Beyond Pulse and everybody listening, so grateful for your time this evening and this afternoon. But please share with the listeners now and those on demand, where can we find you guys personally if we want to learn a little bit more? So Twitter, for example, and then where can we get the book?
Yeah, so the book's available on Amazon. Only on, well, it's available on a few different platforms. It was only available on Amazon initially, but I think there's been stores and different websites that have actually been buying the book and selling it now too. But the best place to find it would be Amazon, which is, the name is Gold Dust: How to Become a More Effective Coach Quickly. And best place to find us, I would probably say Twitter. My dad, I think he's on to his 5th Twitter account now, but I think this one might be staying. But my Twitter handle is DJ Mayer 3, and my dad's, I think, is Keith Mayer 5.
You got it. Yeah. Just remember that. Yeah, quite right. I've got more Twitter accounts. Yes, it's Keith Mayer 5, Tom. That's my Twitter account.
Can I add just sorry, David, just before people, if they were about to jump off because we're coming up to the hour, we've got a number of copies of the book. So just by way of the folks that are on this call, we're going to be giving away a few copies. We'll do a quick draw at the end of this meeting. So we'll reach out to you. We've got everybody's names here. We know who pretty much everyone is anyway. So we're going to be giving away a few copies of the book for participating. So just wanted to let folks know. If you didn't get one, then by all means jump onto Amazon and get involved.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. So guys, again, on behalf of everybody, thank you ever so much for all of your time. The insight was wonderful. It's greatly appreciated, and we obviously look forward to seeing all of these guys go and apply the knowledge and information that you've just shared. For the listeners, thank you again for spending your afternoon with us. Tomorrow we have Mick Beale joining us, who's obviously the current assistant coach at Rangers with Steven Gerrard. So there's a bit of a Liverpool connection there with Keith. So we're in for another treat there with Mick. We look forward to obviously seeing you then, and thank you again for choosing us as your afternoon source of education. Thank you, everybody.